Minnesota Mamala's Stories from the Tribe is an event by TC Jewfolk. This is a live on the Bema show featuring 12 women telling their true Jewish stories that have a thread to being or having a mamala. The stories include good, bad, funny, sad, hilarious, and golden moments. I'm your host, Lonnie Goldsmith, the editor of TC Jewfolk, and this is the Minnesota Mamala's Stories from the Tribe podcast. But before we hear from this week's storyteller, a message from our sponsor this week, Vision Bank.
I'm Mark Slitterman, chairman of Vision Bank. If you are looking for better returns on your money, right now with no minimum balance requirements, you can earn an annual percentage yield of 3% on checking and 4.5% on money market accounts. Visit Vision Bank online at bankwithvision.com or at our branch location in St. Louis Park and see why we're the smart choice for your financial future. Vision Bank. It's possible here. Member FDIC.
This week's storyteller is Marissa Bader. Marissa Bader is a writer and children's book author with a background in mental health. Her books, The Only Me, Stella's Brave Voice, and Petunia the Perfectionist, are inspired by her 3 daughters, an 11-year-old and 8-year-old twins. Her husband Rob hopes she'll never write a book about him. Marissa also enjoys writing articles about mental health and parenthood, and her work has appeared in Psychology Today, HuffPost Parents, Time Out New York, and more. Marissa resides in Linden Hills with her family and can often be found drinking coffee and having dance parties. Find Marissa online at marissabader.com. Marissa Bader, thanks for coming in. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Very excited to talk to you. Tell me, for starters, what was it that brought you to the Stories from the Tribe show in the first place?
Well, I had just done Listen to Your Mother with Galit, which was the most amazing experience ever. I love to write. I love to basically storytell through my writing. Though I had never before Listen to Your Mother done anything live like that, like a live storytelling show. But I caught the bug, and when Galit told me all about this show, I felt very, very compelled. I knew I had this story in me. It's something I'd been wanting to write and to tell for a long time. So I think it really was that same day that she told me about the show. I literally locked myself in my room and wrote. I wrote the whole thing.
So you're newer to the storytelling experience. Mm-hmm. What's it like to work without a net quite in that way?
Like within the storytelling?
Yeah, just the storytelling idea. You're live. You're on stage or on Bema in this case.
Yes.
And any trip, like nobody's going to be angry if you stumble and need to start over. But there's still sort of, I would think, the mentality of, I really want to nail this. But you need to read slow and you need to pay, like all of those things, mm-hmm. You are working without a net in a way.
Totally.
What, as opposed to when you're writing your books, and we'll talk about those in a sec, you have an editor, mm-hmm. and you can do rewrites. It's a very different experience.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. Well, the great part about it is Galit is really so good about, in rehearsal, she gives great notes. So if one of us reads too fast or is fidgeting too much or, says a lot, she really does tell us to make us aware. So we have time to practice.
Yeah.
And I will just tell you, I read and reread that story aloud to myself in the car, in front of the mirror, over and over and over again before I got on the Bema to do it. But even so, it is a little bit terrifying. I'm not going to lie. But yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
So what was it like being on the Bema in front of your family
mm-hmm.
and in front of your Jewish community and maybe non-Jewish community? I don't know who's there, but of your people. But what is that experience like for you to be up there and telling the story that, like you said, had sort of been in you for a while?
It was really exciting. I was certainly very nervous, but I was very excited to be up there and to share the story and having it in front of me. I mean, the fact that you don't have to memorize it is huge.
That helps a lot, I'm sure.
Yes. The fact that I could read, the words are right there, that makes a huge difference. And I did try to look up, but I knew that I didn't want to make eye contact with anyone because if I did, I knew I would stumble. So knowing my people were there was great, but just having the story right in front of me to read was very helpful.
Right, and I think there is something to having, yes, you have it all there, but, and you want to look up and engage, and you want to, but also I'm with you. If I look up, I'm like, wait, where am I on the page? It would totally throw me.
Yes, I'm like, wait, where was I?
Yes. No, I fully can appreciate that.
It's almost an out-of-body experience, too. It's like you're reading, and before you know it, you're at the end, and you're like, how did I get here?
What would you tell someone who's thinking about auditioning for the show?
To definitely do it. Do it. Like, even if you don't think you have a good story to tell, even if you're scared to get up in front of people, do it. Because Galit really will work with you on your story and to help you, like, fine-tune it. And however scared you are, we're all scared. Like, it's scary.
Yes.
It's a scary thing. But you will feel so proud of yourself for doing it and going outside your comfort zone. If you mess up, it's okay. Like, no one's judging. Like, everyone's just really proud of you for getting up there and trying.
For sure. Because I know there's a number of people who were there who were like, oh, this is so much fun. I could never.
Right. I heard a lot of people say that.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And, like, yours... a storyteller, in addition to like your, more professional, like magazine parenting type writing, you're a storyteller. You've written kids' books where you're telling a story. So like you understand things like narrative, which I would think come across a little bit in the preparation for these kinds of events. Yeah,
I mean, definitely. I hope so. Because it's true. When I'm writing, I really am thinking about it in terms of like, a cohesive story, beginning, middle, and end, that's really going to take people on a journey and touch them in some way, shape, or form, and then like leave them with something to like think about or a message to kind of uplift them at the end. So I think so. I think my work in storytelling and journalism helps with that.
Oh, I would think so. Absolutely. What do you want people to know about this story before they hear it?
It's definitely a little bit heavy, but also very uplifting too, if that makes sense. Like it's a tough subject, but one in which I think offers also hope and just the joy that comes with being part of the Jewish community.
Well, excellent. Well, I am going to get out of the way here, and we're going to listen to you, Marissa, read your story, Look for the Light.
Great. For me, being Jewish is so much more than a religion. It's a feeling, like a warm, cozy hug. As I grew up and moved out, first to college, then to New York, then back home, I always felt a deep, unspoken connection with every Jew I met, merely because we grew up in similar ways, with similar values, in a similar cultural community. And yet, I let my religious practices slide in college and beyond, save for the cultural ones. But during my first pregnancy 12 years ago, I felt an instinctive need to bring them back because our child had to be Jewish. Not just because she would be born to Jewish parents, but so she would understand what it meant to be Jewish, to feel tightly wrapped in that warm, cozy hug. When the time came to look for preschools, I didn't think twice about where I wanted her to go. The JCC, I told my husband. It's a wonderful place, and she'll celebrate Shabbat every week. My husband wasn't sure. He had his sights set on the Spanish immersion preschool down the street. So we compromised, and we enrolled her at the JCC. It was everything I thought it would be and more. I adored the friends she was making and the other parents I was meeting. The staff loved our kids so much, and she was learning Hebrew words. She'd wake me up in the morning with a hearty, Boker Tov, Mommy. The only thing that ever gave me pause was the fact that the JCC was a well-known Jewish entity. And the Jewish community has been on high alert since, well, the beginning of time. But I did my best not to let this worry creep in often. Until the day it did. It was a bitter January morning that started like any other. I dropped her off at the J, then headed down the road to Lifetime to take an exercise class. A few minutes in, my phone rang. JCC flashed across my screen. I grabbed it and ran out of the room. "Hello?" I answered breathlessly. "Hi, Marissa. Harper is safe, but there's been a bomb threat at the JCC. Everyone has been evacuated. You need to pick her up." My heart dropped as my phone slid out of my hand. Then the tears started to fall, one by one at first, then fast, heavy, and violent. As I started toward this building they'd evacuated our children to, I was so panic-stricken that I'd completely forgotten where they told me to go. I got lost, driving around in circles, crying, feeling like a delinquent mother who couldn't get to her surely terrified daughter quickly enough during a time of crisis. Finally, a friend texted and said she was there, that our kids were okay, and sent me the address of where to go. I pulled up and sprinted into the building, and there she was, in her pink robe, turquoise swimsuit and swim shoes, giggling with her friends and teachers. Not only was she safe, but she was happy. She wasn't scared in the least. When she saw me, she ran up and gave me a huge hug. "Mommy," she exclaimed, "we had such a fun adventure today. We were swimming, and then someone came in and said we were going on a winter walk. It was all snowy outside, and I only had my swim shoes on, so some nice mommy carried me all the way here through the snow up this big hill and brought me here." I looked at her and forced my mouth into a smile. "Wow, honey, that's amazing. What a fun adventure." To her, that's all this had been, a wild and crazy adventure. But for me, it was so much more. I got her home and swore I'd never let her out of my sight again. I told myself we couldn't go back to the JCC. Maybe the Spanish immersion down the street had been the right choice after all. But then I got a text message from a mom with a child in my daughter's class. It was to me and another mom. It was filled with love, fear, kinship, deep understanding, and solidarity. These women knew exactly what I'd been through that day, and why I was grappling with the decision of whether to send my little girl back to the JCC preschool. We went back and forth for weeks, sending loving messages, letting each other express our deepest fears and unbridled emotions, and talking about our newfound anxiety about raising Jewish children in a world where Jews have always been the target of hatred. These women went from acquaintances to true friends akin to family. We decided it was important to continue sending our daughters to the JCC. If we pull them, we let hate win. We need to keep showing up. And so that's what we did. A few days later, something equally amazing happened. I'd been asking my daughter if she remembered the name of the woman who'd carried her to safety. She couldn't, but she remembered her daughter's name. So I did what any Twin Cities Jewish mama does. I posted a note in Minnesota Mamalas asking if anyone had a daughter with that name. Someone replied that they didn't, but they knew who did. When she told me who it was, I gasped. I know her! I found her on Facebook and sent her a message of sincere gratitude. From one mother to another, I cannot adequately express my thanks. You were there when I was not, and I am eternally grateful. She responded right away. I still have the message, dated January 19th, 2017. Harper was so sweet and calm the whole way. I'm so happy you reached out because I wanted to share with Harper's mommy how great she did. My dad, now long passed, always told me to look for the light during dark times. Well, these were my lights. The amazing mama who brought my child to safety, and those wonderful friends who became family. Today, as it continues to feel scary to be a Jew and to raise Jewish children, I hold on to that light, to those connections, and to the warm, cozy feeling that being part of this Jewish community, this beautifully interwoven tribe, provides.
Marissa, a truly wonderful story, and as somebody who was in the building that day, it was a scary day.
Yeah.
And my children were not there. Mm-hmm. I can only imagine what it was like for you and the other parents who did. But I'm glad that your child was so well taken care of by the moms of the Jewish community. Thank you for sharing Look for the Light. Really uplifting. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Minnesota Mamala's Stories from the Tribe is an annual show by TC Jewfolk. The show will always be in June, and information about the show will always go to our email list first. So go to bit.ly/tcj-newsletter and sign up for our email list to be the first to know about show dates, calls for auditions, cast announcements, and when tickets go on sale. That's bit.ly/tcj-newsletter. See you next time for the next episode of Minnesota Mamala's Stories from the Tribe. The Minnesota Mamala's Stories from the Tribe podcast is part of the Jewfolk Podcast Network, a product of Jewfolk Inc. Episodes are edited by me, and the show is produced by Galit Breen. Theme music for the episode provided by The Long Honeymoon. You can find them at thelonghoneymoon.com. To learn more about the Jewfolk Podcast Network, go to tcjewfolk.com/podcast.